Sherborn Select Board meeting Thursday, April 9, 2008. It is 7:18 p.m. And can I have the Assistant Town Administrator read the open session agenda, please?
Good evening. After I read the agenda, the board can vote to amend and approve the agenda. I've had no request for public comment tonight, and items may be taken out of order and topics not anticipated 48 hours in advance may be added. Item number 1 is the consideration of signing a memorandum agreement between the town of Sherborn and the Mass General Law, Chapter 30B, Section 21-23, Public Employees Committee for Employee Health Insurance. Item number 2 is consideration of signing the 2026 annual election warrant. Property by John Doe and Flex. Item number 3 is the consideration of signing the 54th annual Arts and Crafts Fair and Promoters License. Megan, Hermida Wu, and Jacqueline Fogelman, co-chairs, should be here for that. Then we have a consideration of various appointments. Dan Wolf to the Elder Housing Committee for a term to expire June 15th, 2029, and that's a new appointment. Mark Sennett to the Affordable Housing Trust for a term to expire June 15th, 2048. That's a new appointment. Judith Ledgell to the Board of Registrars for a term to expire June 15th, 2029. That's a renewal. And Dave Welch to the Open Space Committee for a term to expire June 15th, 2029, and that is a new appointment. Item number 5 is the consideration of various road work, and Sean Colleen will be here. Item number 6 is the discussion of sewer infrastructure in North Sherborn Water and Sewer District. Bob Merchant will be joining the board. Discuss. Item number 7 is the consent agenda, which is the TA payroll warrant, the draft minutes of March 21st, 2026, prior to the advisory hearing, March 21st, 2026, the select board at the advisory hearing, March 26th, 2026, and March 12th, 2026. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 one-day liquor licenses. For Jim Durmont for Cocktails LLC for April 24th at Silverwood Farms. A one-day liquor license for Pauline Bounds, May 2nd. It's a private event at the 1858 Townhouse. A one-day liquor license for Pauline Bounds for May 15th, which is a private event, 1858 Townhouse. And a one-day liquor license for Pauline Bounds at the May 16th private event, 1858 Townhouse. And then a request to hold the Dover Sherborn Youth Baseball and Softball Parade on May 2nd, starting at 3 p.m. We have select board reports and TA reports.
All right, thank you. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
I move approval as read by Assistant Town Administrator.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. All right. So item 1, consideration of signing the memorandum of agreement, Town of Sherborn and the MGL Chapter 32B, Sections 21 and 23, Public Employee Committee.
So moved.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. All in favor?
Before we vote, should you explain a
Sure.
little bit what is?
You're the one who jumped right in to move, so I'm like, okay. So Jeremy, you probably have the best handle on this and flub the explanation.
So yeah, this is a combination of the board's efforts to make some plan changes for the health insurance offered for town employees. Following the Mass General Law cited in the agenda item. There was a public employee committee that was formed that had representation by all the bargaining units that received this health insurance. The 3 meetings were convened and we discussed the town's proposal. At the end of those 3 meetings, the committee agreed with proposals presented and voted endorsement of the agreement to make some health insurance plan changes. So this is before you tonight to be ratified with your vote.
All right, thank you. And also, we will be pursuing a side letter to add a high deductible plan as well, but that needs to be a separate negotiation. But just so that everybody knows, the end result of this is, we hope, will be a savings in the town's health insurance costs probably starting in fiscal year 28, but we're anticipating a total savings of probably over $100,000, which I think will be pretty key next year when we are really, once again, probably going to be right up against the levy limit. So, we're trying to move ahead to reduce our costs in fiscal 28.
Can I add to that?
Mhm.
So this also gives an option to employees to have a cheaper health insurance program, because a high deductible leads to cheaper insurance all the way around. And there's a contribution factor from the employees to the policy. So it's a benefit to the employees.
All right. Well, we have a motion and a second already on the table. So all in favor? Aye. Aye. All right. Motion carries. All right. Item number 2, consideration of signing the 2026 annual election warrant. John Doyle, Town Clerk. John?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Hi, everybody. I asked for your consideration in signing the 2026 annual town election warrant. This is a warrant that you can see it on page, I believe it's 5 of the public meeting packet. It basically just it gets posted on the 3 churches, town hall, and the post office. And this warrant basically just lets the public know what is going to be on the ballot. It lets them know which positions are open, how many, for how many years, and it also lets the voters know what the questions are going to be. This is something that we have to do as required by state law. So, like I said, I asked for your consideration in signing it so it can get posted in the next couple days by one of our constables. Happy to answer any questions as well.
Great. Thank you. Select Board?
Move to authorize or approve the issuance of the warrant for the town election.
Second.
All right. Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you. I've got the warrant right here, so you can pass it around and sign it. While I'm doing that, I guess we can move on to item number 3, consideration of approving the 54th Annual Arts and Crafts Fair and Promoters License. Megan Romita Liu and Jacqueline Fogelman, co-chairs.
Oh, I'm here. I'm Jacqueline Fogelman. I'm one of the co-chairs. This is my second year running the fair. So we asked that we get to hold it again this year for the 54th time. We have a lot of vendors already ready to go, 76 vendors, 5 food options, over 16 organizations already signed up, and around 12 young entrepreneurs so far that are signed up for the fair. So it should be a really fun day, and hopefully it'll be good weather. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody have any questions, comments, motions? Paul?
Well, first, let me say I've been to the fair for years. It's a wonderful event. Urge all our residents to come participate. It's a fundraiser for the library,
It is, yes.
so that it's a worthy cause too. In addition, you're able to get all kinds of wonderful things. My kids used to get their Mother's Day presents there. So it's a resource to those, but it's a fun time for everybody. So I move approval of the permission to grant for the fair and for the promoter's license.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Okay,
Thank you.
I'll sign this one.
Thanks, Jack.
Yeah, thanks.
It's guaranteed to rain, by the way.
Thanks for doing this.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Yeah. We're signing
It's
it
coming
right
around.
now.
It's coming around.
Working on it.
Cool.
My wife always donates lots of plants to your fair.
Really, looking forward to getting inspired.
I think the first year, like, it was like she was like a mystery plant donor because she didn't have like her name on anything. So people were just like, who donated all this stuff? Serviceberry Farm, yeah. Yeah.
Geranium bed.
Yes, yes.
All right. Item 4, consideration of various appointments. Dan Wolf to the Elder Housing Committee, Mark Sennett to the Affordable Housing Trust, Judith Fletterjohn for the Board of Registrars, and Dave Welch to the Open Space Committee.
Move that they be appointed as follows. Dan Wolf for a term to expire June 15, 2029. Mark Sennett to the Affordable Housing Trust for a term to expire June 5, 2028. Judith Fetterjohn to the Board of Registrars for a term to expire June 15, 2029. Dave Welch to the Open Space Committee for a term to expire June 15, 2029.
Second.
All right. Before we vote, since a couple of you are here, did you want to, I mean, usually invite you to say anything, you don't have to, but if you wanted to say something about yourselves and why you're interested in the committees that you are being appointed to?
Well, I'm on the safety committee already, so I retired a couple of years ago. And it gives me the extra time to work on stuff that can. Diane suggested it and paying for some. But yeah, I think it's gonna be a good thing.
You should tell our viewers who you are. The ones that are watching on camera, though. Could you say your name?
Dan, just say it.
Dan
Say-
Wolf.
Mr. Sennett can't be here tonight because he's traveling.
Okay.
Mr. Sennett was nominated for 2 Pulitzer Prizes.
Pulitzer Prizes, really?
Pulitzer
That
Prizes.
might have been his brother. Charlie Sennett.
Mark said it.
This is Mark Sennett,
Yeah.
but Mark has a brother named Charlie,
Yes.
who's a very well-known journalist.
Yeah.
Oh, that's who you said.
Yes, I said he's twice nominated for a Pulitzer Prize. So it's a bit of a celebrity.
Yeah, and Mark has quite a record in affordable housing, community development all over the country.
Yep.
So we're lucky to have him step forward.
All right. So there's a motion and a second on the table for approval of all the appointments. All in favor? Aye. All right. Well, congratulations. Okay, item 5, consideration of various road work. John.
So it's early spring, and there's work we like to jump on in the early spring. Last fall, we shimmed Maple Street, and in preparation to chip seal it this summer. If those that remember, we typically get that crew into shim late fall, early spring. We chose to do a late fall last year to try to prevent it from the detrimental winter we had previously. So it did that. It needs another coat. We still have the money for that. That'll get chip sealed. While the crew is coming in, it's much better to have a couple of days worth of work for them. And there's a few roads we can jump on. Those that also remember, we have free cash coming. So we're not waiting till July 1st to kick off work. And there's still some Chapter 90 money. So what we're looking to do is East Goulding Street and the remainder of Forest Street that hasn't been done. To get approval to shim it and chip seal it. You know, it'll be a similar schedule. We'll shim it right now, the next couple of weeks. And then likely over the summer, it'll get chip sealed. Slightly different product between Maple Street and the stone chip seal we've done on kind of the Farm Pond side. So this will basically finish our loop around Farm Pond, other than Snow Street, which I mentioned, needs significantly more work and some storm drainage work. So that we're going to try and queue up for the summer, but I'm not asking for that right now. This is a pretty simple ask. I'll be back in a few weeks or a month with more work. This is just to kick us off early.
And there's funding to do all of it. Money's
There is, yeah.
So the timing, Maple has already been shimmed, and then Golding East and Forest Street both need to be shimmed and then subsequently chip sealed, right? But by the end of the summer, then all three of these roads will be done.
Correct.
and
In Maple.
Yeah, and Maple Street's already been approved.
Re-shim.
It's- Okay.
Shimming on Maple Street,
Okay.
that chip seal.
and it'll Snow Street probably next year.
Snow Street, we're still gonna try and do this year.
Oh,
I
okay.
But I don't have that
Is that
scheduled. I don't have an exact cost on that. I'll be back.
Partly a function of funding being available July 1 and sort
Well,
of figuring it out.
Yeah, I'd be committing money we don't have right now if I was asking for that.
And there's some engineering to be done on Snow Street, there's some storm drainage piping that needs to be
Right.
sized. Which actually, outlets on private properties, it's
Right.
things to work through there.
It's still the goal to try and do it this year.
And so then can you just kind of give us a brief overview of what the budgetary situation is in terms of how much you have right now to spend and then how much we're anticipating to get on July 1?
I don't have exactly what I have in front of me. And I just came
Ballpark.
off the road a little while ago.
Ballpark is fine.
Well, there's a little over 500 in chapter 90 that's either available or will be in and around July 1st, depending on when they sign the bill. That'll likely actually be more. They haven't committed that. They haven't sent us that letter. The town meeting article, the free cash, I think we did 150, right?
175.
So that's going to be available the night after town meeting,
Okay.
day after town meeting.
Okay.
And then the remainder of that, which is now 550,
450,
450 total.
450 and about 500 in state, so we all, about $950,000 for what we're this on.
Okay.
Was there any balance available from last year's appropriations, or did you clean it up?
No, that's all that's spent. So that what'll happen with the balance, and I didn't have it right now, is we got a $50,000 grant for guardrails, and what we're doing is we're finishing up the paperwork to get another to proceed, but we're going to combine. 50,000 doesn't actually go very far on guardrails, so we're trying to fix the stretch that down by the dump and from coming in from the Natick line. Those pieces are falling. You saw what happened when a tree hit it. It initially went out and quoted what I was trying to do was get past Laurel Fields and get the whole stretch because it's terrible. But between what we have in the budget and the 50, so that'll get combined with what's left, and probably some money from this free cash. That'll chew up everything we had from last year.
You probably said this at the outset and I just missed it, but the timing for doing the work on Goulding Street and Forest, when would you do the first?
The next couple of weeks. That's why I'm in for that commitment now.
And then the chip seal over the summer?
Yeah, the chip seal will be
Later.
probably early summer, late summer.
Okay. All right. So the shimmy you can get done right away. You don't have to wait till after town meeting to get that started.
Correct.
You're right. Okay. Okay.
Paul?
So he's asking for approval. So I want to move to approve Golding Street East and Forest Street.
Yep. Yeah, and those are the numbers I gave you are estimates.
I'll second his motion.
All right. Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Right.
All right.
Thank you.
Chuck, maybe you give a little update on this interesting software or we have a demonstration on, I have a proposal for doing some inventory and the maintenance of your pavement management or road condition index. With some interesting new technology that we may be utilizing.
Yeah, as long as you promise to approve that tonight. So what we had in the past, we've used a couple different models that does our pavement assessment. And what that was in Jeremy's younger years was, an engineer driving around and with a logbook, I'm sure, and just, marking up the distresses.
Physically surveying it in terms of, younger staff engineers.
Right. So
Physically visiting.
two different companies we've used in the past 5 or 6 years as the kind of the AI, the vision models started, really coming to light, and they put sensors on the cars and you drive, and it uses a vision system and different sensors to recognize the distressing in the road and then grade it. But it was still, heavy engineer intensive because they'd have to kind of, back into the reality of what it was seeing and everything else. So that, it's come great strides. And now this year, what we have, which we're going to kick off very soon because we're going to try and get a scan before we do any work. They actually have the unit that they ship to us, and we actually put on one of our vehicles with a tablet. It's mapped out for the town, right? We have 56, center line miles of road. It maps out what course you're going to take. We drive it with the sensors, and it scans the road, and the package we picked is going to scan 2 assets. So what's a roadside asset? This year we're going to do street signs. It's going to get a complete inventory, and it's going to grade all the street signs. So we don't have that. We don't have an inventory of every sign in town. It'll do that while it's scanning the roads, and also guardrails. So it'll give it the location and length of every guardrail, and obviously the condition.
It's all done by AI. So it takes the LiDAR system that's on this vehicle, gathers pretty image of everything, accurate within several inches. And then uses AI to come up with your roadway condition assessments and the locations of all your guardrail and materials and all of that.
Great. So I'm pretty excited about that because if someone asked me how many feet of guardrail we have in town, I couldn't possibly tell you. I couldn't possibly tell you. I couldn't tell you what the worst ones are, but it's labor intensive to go out and measure them, and dangerous.
Lots of interns doing this.
And so is this part of our existing contract, and it's just the latest and greatest?
This would be a new contract. Instead of using, this would actually supplant the need to do, the pavement study.
Yep.
We wouldn't need to do that.
So is there a financing issue of how the software gets paid for? There's sufficient funding to.
Yeah.
How expensive is it?
So that scan would be about $10,000 a year.
Okay.
The previous one we did was $24,000 for a full scan, and then the report that we have.
And so for the 10K, they ship the unit, gets put on top of the vehicle, do the drive, does all the analysis.
Yeah.
And then they get the unit back.
Right, and we can do that several times a year if we want, which is kind of the goal. That's why I'm trying to get it in, scan it before we do any work.
Roadway conditions.
Mm-hmm.
You can do your job and then you can drive it and update your assets. And year over year, you can add other things. Sure. Wants to do guardrail signs. You don't have.
I wish I had done trees. Like the goal was I wish I had been able to do trees in 2016.
And is it like 10K for a year or 10K each time we call them? Or?
Per year.
Per year. Okay.
You can drive service every day.
It's pretty cheap.
It's a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
How well validated is the AI?
They have what, about 100 or so other Massachusetts communities that are already.
Does it give you information on the materials? The thickness of the pavement or the.
It can't do thickness, but it's doing surface, so it's doing distress.
Right.
So it can recognize the hairline fractures, potholes, and everything else. So it's grading them, and it's grading every 10 feet, I think.
Does it also record images so that you can kind of double check what it's reporting?
Yeah,
physically going on to the
it's essentially the same. When you go into it, and we have access into it, they host it It's massive, massive shapefile. But as you scan through it, it's very much the same as if you're doing the Google Street View.
More accurate.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, that's great. I mean, it allows you to plan on a town-wide scale what your
Right.
priorities
Yeah,
are.
it helps us inform, what types of treatments we should be doing, which, makes a great deal of difference.
It's not one of the commercial ones they actually built.
They built
the
it.
VI model
I see.
for this purpose.
I see. Now, in the past, I know when we had the sort of like roadway conditions, the map with the green and the yellow and the red, there was also sort of a recommended schedule of, all right, well, you should really work on, these particular roads and on this time frame. So is there also still going to be an analysis that way?
Yeah, and it's based on the same scale, so we'll be able to just carry on with that.
Mhm.
We're also going to be able to pull the shape files from the previous scans into this, so you can go back and look over time. This company actually subcontracted. They did scan our roads before when they were just subcontracted to other engineering firms.
Okay.
They've obviously come quite a bit, even in just a couple of years, with their technology.
Sounds great.
Good, yeah.
Before you go on to another subject, I missed a part of the library fair request, this were additional request, so I wonder if I could revisit that before you go on to other agenda item.
Sure. Is there anything more about roadways or that it? Okay.
Just an update. Yeah. Okay.
Nice.
Thanks.
Well,
So I want to amend the motion that we made earlier with regard to the library fair. To add to the approval to place sandwich boards on town locations from April 20th to May 9th, and to hang a banner at the Route 1627 split from April 20th to May 9th, and to use the town hall grounds for vendor and any working. And they want us to waive the fee for the promoter's license, since their profits for this fair serves as the fundraising event for the Sherborn Library. So I'd like to make that as an amendment
I'll
to
second your motion.
Mhm.
all right, moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Okay.
thank you.
Alrighty, item number 6, discussion of sewer infrastructure in North Sherborn Water and Sewer District. Bob? Please.
First of all, thank you very much for having me. The invitation was quite prompt. I think it was the day I sent you the next day. That's not always the response I get from boards and commissions in town, so I'm grateful. So what I wanted to talk about, I think, is it's in the agenda. But I want to just spend, and I was counseled today not to spend too much time on the past, but I think the past does inform the present question. So I do feel compelled to spend just a minute or two on the past. And I think the past is important because that past was all of us, frankly, working together 2.5 years ago. We didn't always agree. Most of the people who wrote the town warrant that for a special town meeting in October of 23 and wrote the advisory report are here tonight. This is the right group of people. We all work together. I was one of the most outspoken people in that process. I had very strong opinions at the time. And ultimately, the legislation kind of was worked on and changed and based in part a little bit on what I wanted to see as a resident and as a property owner. And there was a lot of input from everyone in the community on this. And we developed I say we because like I was, even though you guys did it, I was involved in the process and I'm proud of that. I was at the public hearing and advisory. I was there that night there, you know, and we got legislation that made sense and it was good. And, you know, I don't love the 200 homes that have been proposed, but I decided at the time that it was important enough to me to bring water and sewer infrastructure into North Sherborn that I could support that because it was the benefit of the bargain, so to speak, right? That we were going to get this into town and we were going to get 200 units. Some people really like that for the obvious reason it gets you into safe harbor. I recognize that. And I've kind of gotten over the fact that you're going to get into safe harbor, and that's fine. I felt it was much more important that we get infrastructure into town. So we did all that work, and I just want to spend like 30 seconds reading some of the things that we're promoting. The advisory report said other properties in the district, including those abutting the segment of Coolidge Street within the district, and properties on Meadowbrook Road would not be connected to the water and sewer infrastructure initially, but would have that option in the future if they so choose, according to procedures described in the legislation. It goes on, this reserve capacity would ensure that in the future, water and sewer would be available to every property in the district. The frequently asked questions that were presented to us, additional properties abutting the main water and sewer pipes, as well as Meadowbrook Lane residents who are near the potential path of the general chemical contaminants can be added to water and or sewer district in the future. Okay. And then lastly, I'll just quote the legislation itself, which says any other lot existing as of October 17, 2023 shall, Paul's a lawyer, he knows what shall means, shall be connected to the district's water distribution system and or sewer system upon request of the owner. Those were all, that's in the legislation. This was sold, and I think all of us here know what we were voting on that night. And what we were voting on is what's in what I just read to you. We were voting on having these projects result not only in the 200 apartments, not only in getting to safe harbor, which I know is important to you all, but also would result in a sewer system and a water system that we, the residents along the pipe, I'm a property owner, as you know, that we could all connect to. So that's kind of how we got here. Up until about a few weeks ago, I understood that that was going to be what was going to happen. And by the way, I just want to say as an aside, because there was, I think Marion said something in public which I corrected, and it was nothing malicious about it, but she said that I had kind of put my 40-unit apartment building to the side and didn't intend to go forward with that. I can tell you all that is absolutely not the case. It is fully engineered. It is sitting on my desk and it's waiting to be submitted to the ZBA. Okay. I am going forward with that project. But the conversation tonight is not about that project. Okay. Ultimately, that project will be an issue in front of the ZBA and then ultimately in North Sherborn Water District and all the process. But fortunately, there was a very, very carefully written process for me coming to the town and connecting to the water and sewer in order to be able to build that building. It's all in the legislation, and it certainly was well described. And so much work was put into how all of this capacity, which was going to be reserved, and the excess, and who could get what. Well, why did we have those conversations? Because we all thought the sewer system and the water system were going to be available to be connected into by the residents along the pipe. Unfortunately, we find ourselves in a tough spot. Toll Brothers has come to us. And by the way, I have no issue with Toll Brothers. I have a great deal of respect for what they do and what they're doing. I had some great conversations in the last few days. No issues with them. They're doing exactly what I would do as a developer, right? They're focused on their project as they should be. But we, the town, need to focus on what's important to us. And I think it should be important to us how we can have a public infrastructure, not a private infrastructure that just takes Toll Brothers waste to Natick. There needs to be a public infrastructure associated with the sewer. And I get it, the water is going to be that. And I applaud that. That is great. But I think we need to kind of take a breath and talk about what we're doing here, because I worry that the design that I'm hearing about, and it's not on paper, I haven't seen it, I've just, it's just kind of been described by people that know, but it's been described in a way that concerns me, because I don't see it as being a public utility in the way it's been described. So I'm here tonight with an ask of you all. I would very much ask respectfully that we take a breath and we hire an engineer as a town, and we go out and we think about what this can look like, what it should look like, and what the potential costs are, if any additional costs. And we talk about, is it worth it or not worth it to us? And whether we have to, right, based on the law, that's an important question also. But even if it wasn't required by the law that's written, and that's for another time to figure that out, but even if it wasn't required by the law, it seems like it's imperative that if we're putting pipes in the ground in our town to bring water and to bring sewer capability to town, that's not something that's just about 2026, right? That's about decades into the future. And I am asking us to just take a breath, hire an engineer, and let's find out what's possible. And I recognize that Liz is here tonight, and she's a great engineer, but she works for somebody that's not us, right? And I would like for us to independently determine what the other options are, and do we really want to go forward without having a public infrastructure for sewer in town? Because I just think that could be devastating to the public health and the economic health of the town for decades. That if we waste this opportunity, this is a really important point in the economic public health history of the town. And I just feel like kind of flying through it. And I'm afraid of that. I don't think that's a good decision. And so I'm not asking for a specific outcome tonight. I'm not asking for a year of study. I'm asking that the town hire an engineer and look at the possible ways of building this system and what it would cost and how that relates to Toll Brothers. I get Toll Brothers has, its own perspective, and it's totally appropriate. But I don't think we as the town want to just kind of blithely go forward and make these decisions without getting independent thoughts on this. And I'll go on to say, I've heard people say, well, who's going to pay for it if it costs more? Well, there are various people that could pay for it. I don't think this is the time to discuss that, because we don't know how much money we're talking about. But if I build my building, I've got money in the budget for infrastructure, right? Maybe I can help. I've offered that previously. A year ago, I suggested that if I was going to be able to plug into this sewer, maybe I could help defray the costs of putting the pipe down Meadowbrook Road, which, if you recall at the time, I argued vociferously, not because it was going to benefit me. It's not going to benefit me at all. But it was wrong for us to plan a system that didn't give the opportunity for water and sewer to the folks on Meadowbrook Road. And at the time, I said, well, I'm going to build a building. Let's talk about this. And God forbid that taxpayers put any money into this. I know people are deathly afraid of that concept, I'm personally, I'm a big taxpayer in town. I don't want to take that off the table because it's critical to the long-term health of the town. Anyway, I would, now, I've said my piece. I'd love to get your. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Bob. I guess a few things that I want to address about what you said, specifically with regards to the concept of essentially access to water and sewer. I think part of the confusion is that access it's never meant that the town was going to build all of the infrastructure within the district for water and sewer. Access, what it means is having the opportunity to receive water from Framingham and to discharge sewer into Natick, right? And so that was simply not even possible. And a great deal of legwork has gone into even making that possible, creating the district, developing, working on the IMAs, getting all of the various regulatory approvals. So access means simply having the ability to have these services. And from the get-go, the concept has always been that we're going to work on being able to have the access, but the building of all of the infrastructure and the pipes is generally, it's going to be the responsibility of the private owners who need the services. And even in the FAQ that you were reading from, immediately, I mean, one FAQ question above what you read, does the owner of any property adjacent to the new NWA water or sewer have the option to connect and be part of the sewer water and sewer district? And the answer is no. The water and sewer infrastructure is being funded and installed by the developer specifically for these two multifamily projects. Until it is completed, the developer owns it. It is possible that extensions to other properties could be negotiated with the developer prior to construction, but the town can't require the developer to agree to or build such extensions. In addition, just the FAQ that you read, the following paragraph under the same question, in all cases, the property owner will be responsible for all costs. And again, this was, I think, one of the things that people were concerned about at the special town meeting is that taxpayers wanted to make sure that the town was not going to be paying for the infrastructure that was only going to be benefiting this district. And essentially that's the answer that we're giving is that no, all the costs of the infrastructure are always going to be borne by the developers who are building things. And so essentially, what we have always asked of Toll Brothers and even, based on before them, was that they were going to be the ones that were building all of the infrastructure and they were going to be building it for their own properties. Now, meanwhile, during that time period, before they have designed and built anything, anybody who is in the district and along the path of the pipes that they're building, if they want to get in on the water or the sewer, all they have to do is reach out to Toll Brothers, negotiate with them. This is between two private parties. The town and the district have nothing to do with that. And essentially, they will work on basically designing you into their system. And in fact, for water, there's already going to be a couple of additional customers from the get-go because there are a few properties that are on the Framingham line currently receiving water from Framingham, and they're going to instead be tying into the water. Sewer, essentially, it's anybody who wants to tie in just needs to reach out to Toll Brothers and negotiate with them whatever the cost is, right? Because presumably designing additional users onto their sewer main is going to increase the costs, and you obviously have to bear that and pay your fair share. And so far as I'm aware, I speak to them pretty regularly. They're pretty open to anybody who wants to tie in. You just have to reach out to them and basically work with them on the design. And there's gonna be a cost, and it's gonna be based on whatever the design is. So I think that has always been the situation. it remains the current situation. I think that the window of time has been open pretty long. The special legislation that town meeting was in 2023. I believe that you had an initial filing with the EOHLC for your project in, I think it was July of 2024. The select board had a comment letter. In that comment letter, we also specified that your plan was kind of dependent on getting water and sewer from Framingham and Natick, and that infrastructure had not been constructed yet, and that you were going to have to work with the developer of those projects to tie in. That was nearly 2 years ago. That window is still open, right? Because they haven't designed it yet, and it's going to be months and months and months before they build it. So the window still remains open for anybody to reach out to Toll Brothers and tie into it if they want. I think the one thing that I will say is that I don't believe that the board, I'm going to let anybody else speak if they want, but I don't believe that the town has any interest in delaying the construction of this project. It's been nearly a decade now that we've been trying to get this done. And again, it's been several years now that we've been working on just this specific project, all of the legislation, the IMAs, all of the regulatory work, and we're on a timeline with the developers, and again, we're still looking at probably a year before we're breaking ground if we're lucky. So there's still plenty of time, and I don't think that we're interested in doing anything to potentially delay that further. I don't believe that the town is interested in spending money to hire an engineer to look at building something that we're pretty sure that the entire, the message that we got from the entire town during the special town meeting was that no, the town doesn't want to spend a bunch of tax dollars building massive infrastructure that would serve the entire district. I will defer to Jeremy, who is a civil engineer, but I think that the cost of a sewer system like that would be well into the tens of millions of dollars, and that's simply not something that the town is. It would be greater than the cost of the entire library building renovation project. So I don't think that the town is going to be interested in pursuing that. I think that Toll Brothers is going to be building what they build for their developments, and again, anybody is welcome to reach out to them and find out what it would take to tie in. And I think that's the situation.
Can I clarify a few points that you made?
Sure.
So the first is, you quoted the language. I don't recall whether it was the FAQ or which of them. There are three documents. The most important, of course, is the legislation. Okay. And then the FAQs and the advisory report are also important. You quoted one of them as saying that the people would have to pay to extend the system. What that's talking about is, for example, if I own property up on Kendall Street, I don't have a right to have anyone pay for a pipe up Kendall Street for me to connect into, okay? The way the legislation is written, the way the FAQs are written, and the way the advisory report is written, it is very clear that if you are on the pipe, that's the critical thing. So I completely agree with what you said. When it comes to extending, nobody has the right to expect that the town's going to pay for that. 100% we're in agreement. Where we don't agree is, I believe the legislation and I believe the FAQs and the advisory all say, and by the way, there are about 12 homes, including Sweet Meadow Farm, that are along that pipe. Okay, there are 12 property owners that fall into the category that I'm fairly narrowly defining here. Okay, and what I am saying is that what we all understood when we did this work 2.5 years ago, and I can quote Marion at town meeting and what she said that night, and you know what you said. I'm sure you've even gone back and watched it. We all understood that if the property owners were on the pipe, they could plug in. And that's what we all understood. And I get the fact that, Liz said, well, it's uphill. I get it. I totally understand that this is a complex problem, okay? But I think before we move forward on this and potentially violate the law, I mean, we don't know, right? But before we do that, I think we need to understand where we are because what I understood from, and by the way, I am not here tonight to talk about my building and my connection to the sewer for my building. I have had conversations with Toll Brothers about that, and I think I understand that. But what I'm talking about is pretend I'm just going to stay a single family home and Al's property and the 10 other properties along Coolidge Street. We were all promised in that night, in what people said and what people wrote and what the legislation says, that we could connect into that pipe. Now, what I understand is that it could be, for Al to connect, it could cost $500,000. Well, so are you going to make the argument? Oh, well, yeah, the legislation just says he can connect. I mean, come on. That's not a credible argument that that's access to the system. And the reason it does come down to this gravity thing, right? That it's uphill to Natick. And so what Toll Brothers is proposing is they're gonna pump it from there. And that is what makes it incredibly complicated and expensive, this $500,000 number, to get into the system. Because you're coming in to a pressurized pipe, okay? I'm not asking for a specific answer. I'm asking that we get some information here, that we find out the facts. I've heard you, Stephen, now throw this number around of $10 million. That could be off by orders of magnitude because we don't even know what the solution would be, much less how much it costs, right? In other words, maybe you have a pipe. What I suggested in the last couple of days is you have a pipe that flows from the last house uphill, the house closest to Natick, that flows downhill, gravity fed. Everybody can just pop into it, gravity fed down. The pump station, instead of being up on Toll Brothers property, or on the Kennedy Wilson's property, or whoever's property it is, the pump station would be at the bottom of the Meadowbrook Common driveway, which is right next to my property, by the way. It's between, their driveway is between Kathy Horgan's house and the property that I own, just to get you guys to understand where we're talking about. If the pump system were there instead of up on Toll Brothers, then you could have a pipe that all 12 properties could gravity feed into, and then the pump station is there. It takes in the Toll Brothers waste also into that one pump station, so you only have one pump station, and you pump it back uphill to Natick. Is that more expensive? Absolutely, it's more expensive. But is it $10 million? Is it $500,000? And we're just going to make a decision. Why would we want to make that decision without some information? I'm not asking us to do that plan. I'm here tonight to say, go spend a couple $1,000. I don't know what it is, but it's not much more than that, to find out what the options are for the town. We're talking about something that could impact the town for decades into the future. And I'm asking that we spend a couple of $1,000s to go do this.
Will you
find out the answers? What?
Will you pay for it?
Yes, I will. I will.
So that was
Is that the town we live in? That I have to pay for it? I'm not here talking about my building, Stephen.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm here talking about the 12 owners of property that we promised as a town in the legislation. And yes, I am willing to write the check,
Mhm.
but I think that's awful that you asked me that, actually.
Can I say something?
Yep.
Just as far as the legislation and us breaking the law.
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, so.
Yeah, neither am I, nor am I a civil engineer, and neither are you, so we pass that on to the civil engineers, so I'll do my best from what I've learned. First of all, the law says, yes, you have the right to connect, conditioned on appropriate pipes, not just pipes, but appropriate
I
pipes.
figured that was gonna.
So you figured that,
I
okay,
figured you'd go there.
yeah, all right. So we've been around the block before.
Well, I haven't talked about it, but that's exactly the word. And I can tell you what my opinion is about that word
Right.
in that sentence.
But
What that word means is if the water pipe, as you know, comes down Kendall and the sewer pipe, and the word appropriate means to say, if you don't have a water pipe in front of your house, then you don't get to plug into water. You only get to plug into sewer, and vice versa. That's what.
oh, you mean water versus sewer? Well,
Why would we have debated ad nauseum excess capacity and reserved capacity? Who are we reserving the capacity for if nobody can plug into the pipe unless they pay $500,000?
well, nobody can plug into the pipe that's initially laid in the ground for the two developments unless you arrange in advance with the developer to be part of their plan, their infrastructure plan. And I understand, we met with you and Toll Brothers, 2 years ago here in this room, actually.
Yes.
And
Well,
and they were open to that idea.
and they're open to it today.
And yeah, but at the time, you were
I'm not worried
Not
about my
comfortable.
building, Marion.
Okay.
I'm worried about 12 homes on Coolidge Street who are
Okay.
getting screwed. I can take care of myself.
so. The bottom line is you want somehow for us to negotiate or pay for or figure out a way to put,
Or ask me to pay for it. Until we know how much it costs, we shouldn't say, no, we're just going to build a private sewer system.
well, as you know, we have no engineering plans yet. We have no detail. As Steve said very well, the door is still open. Talk to Toll Brothers.
I
know
gotta
you
say,
have
I gotta
talked to
say,
them.
I gotta say, we're being recorded here tonight, okay?
Of course.
I find it absolutely astonishing that you are telling me that in order to connect to the North Sherborn Water Sewer District pipe, which has to be owned by the North Sherborn Water Sewer District, that I have to talk to Toll Brothers to do that? That blows my
The
mind.
initial sewer engineering plan
That blows
is
my
being
mind.
done by Toll Brothers,
So
not by the
you
town.
are telling me that as a property owner, and you're telling Al, that if he wants to connect into the pipe under a Sherborn street that is owned by the North Sherborn Sewer Water District, that we have to talk to Toll Brothers?
Well, they're paying for it. They're installing it.
Yeah, until
Okay.
somebody other than the private developer who is building it taps into it, they're going to continue to own it.
Okay. Do you know what your IMA with Natick says? You guys signed it.
Of course we do.
It says all of that infrastructure is owned by the North Sherborn Water Sewer District.
That it will be,
It will be.
not that it is currently.
Nobody owns it right now. Obviously, it
It's
doesn't
built.
exist. Right? And I get the fact that you're going to have an agreement with them to build it. Great. But your IMA says North Sherborn Water Sewer District owns it. And you're telling me to tap into a public utility, I have to call Toll Brothers. I'm willing to call Toll Brothers, don't get me wrong. But I'm really surprised that you're telling me that's my only option. That's
I think Sean's had his hand up for a while.
Oh, right,
Maybe-
let's
maybe he
hear from
can help us break the logjam here.
All right, go ahead, John.
There is one person you could talk to that's not told. And she's probably going to be ticked that I'm pointing to her, but Liz Clark's on the call. She doesn't need
I talked to her
comment.
yesterday.
I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
But she's the person that you could talk to about designing it. She's not Toll Brothers.
She works for Toll Brothers.
She works for lots of people. Works for an engineering firm.
But on this project, she works for Toll Brothers. I don't think it's appropriate. Liz is a great engineer. I have no quarrel, as I said before, with Liz. But to ask her about a question that's kind of a negotiation between Toll Brothers and Sherborn is like inviting the,
It's not between Toll Brothers.
whatever.
I'm not an attorney. It's not between Toll Brothers and Sherborn. Spent hundreds of hours on calls working on this. And it's not Sherborn. It's the North Sherborn Water District,
Well, yeah.
which is not Sherborn.
Well, it's a governmental entity. There's a
Independent of the town of
there's a
Sherborn
real
and not funded by them.
there's a very thin veil between those two entities.
Sure, that's true, but as Sean said, the water sewer district is not governed nor funded by the town of Sherborn. So let's hear more about your conversations with Toll Brothers.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Have you proposed to Toll Brothers that be designed for additional users from the get?
Again, Marion, I had a conversation with Toll Brothers about my building. Okay, about the idea of a big building. But to me, that's a very different public policy issue than about Al's property and all of the homes up and down Coolidge who were promised that they could plug in. And I think it's wrong.
And just to be clear, Bob,
Yes.
water is very different from sewer. And
I didn't come tonight to talk about water.
I know, and the point being that I think what we have heard from the existing residents in the district is that water is the primary concern, right? Because of the general chemical plume, and the initial concept of the entire district was just water. It was just the North Sherborn Water District. And that's what everybody is really mostly interested in, is getting clean drinking water. And connecting to the water main is going to be much more straightforward than sewer. Now, I will acknowledge that at the time of the special town meeting, I'm not an engineer. I did not have a thorough understanding of the difference between a gravity main and a force main. I've gotten quite an education about that in the past couple of months, right? But even if I did, right, like the topographic analysis of the area hadn't been done anyway, so it was moot, right? And so, okay, yes, I just assumed that water and sewer work the same way. There's a pipe there, and you can hook into either one, just like the other. I did not realize that sewer was a dramatically more complicated engineering feat than water, right? But that is simply the reality, right? Is that sewer is going to be a lot more complicated and a lot more expensive. Furthermore, the vast majority of the existing users are really not that interested in sewer. It's really the water, right?
I don't know that to be true. I know two people are sitting here tonight who care deeply about it.
Okay, well, but the situation remains
that I'm aware of.
The situation remains that if you want to be part of the sewer system, that speaking to the people who are building the sewer system is the way to go, right?
I think honestly, Stephen, that's inappropriate. I think it would be appropriate for the three parties to speak to each other, for me to speak with with Toll Brothers and either the North Sherborn Water, I don't know which entity you want, but a town component to that conversation, because this is what I'm hoping you guys can realize is that, you are in a negotiation with Toll Brothers, right? You know that. You're gonna negotiate a development agreement. You don't have to do everything they tell you, and they certainly don't have to do everything you say. You're negotiating with them. They're not here for you, they're here for their shareholders, right? And I'm here for my shareholders, which are ultimately the people who are going to live in the building I want to build. I consider those people my shareholders. And I'm glad you agree that we all thought 2.5 years ago, and it says in the legislation, that you have access if you're on the pipe.
But it doesn't promise that you will be able to hook up without some expense.
Correct. Is $500,000 a reasonable expense?
So we're not sure that's a number either.
I-
They're sure that's an accurate.
That came from Toll Brothers.
Pat Brisbane, by the way.
Can I correct that? It's kind
Yes,
of
please.
just bothering me. So when I did talk, um, that number is quoting from what I would say would be that 40 unit home pump station cost to tie in. That's the number I gave. I didn't give the number for a single family home when we spoke the other day. So that's a much larger system, right? We're talking about discharging up to 8,000 gallons per day. You're going to need to have storage. You're going to need to have a much more sophisticated system. I never gave a number related to a single family home.
Okay, so let me rephrase that. That's a question I would like answered. What's it going to cost Al to connect to to connect for 1,000 gallons a day or whatever it takes to run one of the largest small businesses in Sherborn? That's a question we should know the answer to. That's fair. And what I'm asking you all is that this new plan, which has been sprung on me, some of you knew it earlier, but it's been sprung on me in the last few weeks. I'm just asking that we understand what it really means. Then we can fight about whether you're going to solve the problem or not and who's going to pay for it and all of those things. I'm here tonight to simply ask, can you please spend a couple of $1,000s and I'll pay for it if you really think that's necessary?
So Bob,
and
please.
find out the answers to
Bob, please. So ultimately, as the legislation and all of the informational things beforehand have noted, it has always been at the expense of the owners who are benefiting from the system, right? And it's no different from Toll Brothers built, like they are benefiting from what they're building and they're paying for it. They're not getting any money from the town. And the way that we have set everything up is that anytime somebody from the district wants to have access to the water and sewer, all of that is done at the owner's expense, right? And so that is the reason why I asked you if you were going to pay for it, okay? Because we made a promise to the rest of the town that the town was not going to be paying for the infrastructure that is built in the district, right? And a few $1,000s, yes, it sounds very small, but our current budget for fiscal year 27, the proposed budget, is about $8,000 below the levy limit. It's very tight right now, right?
So I assume you're happy that I've, over the last 10 years, created $750,000 a year of tax revenue based on development.
Sure. So ultimately, that is the reason why the way that this needs to work is that the property owners who are interested in having access to the water and sewer need to pay for the engineering themselves or talk to Toll Brothers and have them work on the design with them. So if Sweet Meadow, if you guys are interested in being part of the sewer system that Toll Brothers builds, just reach out to Toll Brothers. We'll give you their contact information. Yes, please.
Bob Stanton.
No, please go ahead, please.
If you give me a couple minutes here, I do know Paul, I know Diane, but the rest of you, I don't know. My name's Al.
Need to speak up just a little
bit.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm always low. Anyways,
Come on up at the table.
so I'll sit down next
Yeah,
time.
that's great. So the mics are there.
So my name's Alan Shad, and of course, Sweet Meadow Farm, my wife and I own Sweet Meadow Farm. And a little background on why this is so important to me. 4 years ago, 2022, I applied for a building permit to build more horse stables, a 7-stall horse barn, along with a small indoor riding ring. The Board of Health and the building inspector told me we couldn't because we don't have bathroom facilities. The water table on our farm is 3.5 feet here water. It's 5 feet in Sherborn. In many other towns, it's not that high, or low, whatever you want to call it. So we couldn't build that indoor riding ring and add our stables. We own 22 horses. We don't board horses. We have a lot of children that come on the farm. I have 2 units, I should say, with 2 bathrooms in each, handicap, and I get them pumped every single Sunday by United Rentals, I don't even know, United, whoever they are. So it's very expensive. So a septic system would be great, but we've always been told we cannot. We've perked the test, perked it, and went to it. So year and a half later, after we got turned down on that building permit, I hear about Trask and then Toll Brothers, and then all these meetings that we had with the water, I don't know, the Sherborn Water District. And every meeting that I listened to, it sounded like we could tap into it. And for at least the last year and a half, I've been under the impression that we just have to tap into it, and our expense would be to tap into it. And I don't know if any of the other 12 people on the, residents understand what you were saying about the FAQ, that it's, you have to deal with Toll Brothers. I never heard any of that in any of the meetings. I thought it was more or less our, not obligation, but our right to tap into it if there was enough reserve. And that's the one thing I remember in all the meetings was if there's enough reserve. So we needed to communicate with the water district or the Sherborn district if we wanted to tap into it and get in line, because if there wasn't enough reserve, we wouldn't have it. So we want bathrooms at our facility. In the summer, we have 45 kids every week at horse camp. I have hand washing sinks, portable. I have 4 bathroom units plus 1 porta potty over by the farm stand. And it's not sanitary, in my opinion, even though they're respectable bathrooms. It's a bathroom trailer. If I brought pictures, I could show them. One unit costs $55,000 for me to buy. It has a 250-gallon waste tank and a 200-gallon water tank, and that gets pumped every week. You can imagine the cost of that. So that was I was excited about that fact that we might someday be able to have a bathroom and someday have a new stable with another riding ring. It's 24 acres. During the summer, like I said, 45 children there all the time. But even during the school year, at 3 o'clock, we generally have 10 to 15 children coming there from 3 to 6. But also we have individual riding lessons all day long. So anyways, I'm curious if you could ask some of the other residents whether or not they were in the same impression as me, or if I just misread it, where I needed to communicate with Toll Brothers and I want to connect. It's just for our bathrooms. I'm not looking to build, mega mansions in the backfield.
That's my job.
Because that's maybe the grandkids down the road, if ever we could get.
And just to be clear, Al, you are an existing user in the district.
I
So
have a house.
all of your existing uses are already covered by
But he
the
doesn't
capacity.
have any existing septic uses because he doesn't have a system.
I live on Meadowbrook Road, and that's one thing, but Coolidge Street is my goal to have a workable, real bathroom.
Yeah.
Right.
Sewer or septic.
But again, it's kind of like the same thing as what I'm telling Bob is like the window right now is wide open to have your needs designed into the system.
I understand,
But
but I do believe, am I the only one of the 12 people that were in that?
I'll answer that question. My name is Pat Bresnan. I live at 126 Coolidge. No, I was under the exact same impression as you, Al, that if we wanted to tap into it, it would go in front of the North Sherborn Water Sewer District. As long as there was capacity and the board approved it, then the provisions will be.
That's what the meetings were that I remember, unless we.
Jeff.
Yeah, I'm wonderful. I have a kind of an in-between perspective, and I actually am a civil engineer, but I kind of ruined it by getting an MBA later. So I worked for Turner Construction for 3 years, actually, in an earlier life. So to me, and John and Liz and maybe Bob can correct me, the difference between the two systems is the septic system has to be pressurized to go into Natick. So I actually think we need to think it through with Toll Brothers about where the pumping station moves, which he mentioned before, because the issue is that we're pumping from a little bit further up at their property, and then it's coming down and then going back up again. I think it might be worth understanding from an integrated district perspective where the pumping station should be. And if the pumping station was at the very lowest point in the district, then people could just connect because they're going to be still able to not have to pressurize it to get into the system. The problem is if it's being pumped somewhere else, then you have to make a pressurized connection. I don't know whether it's
No,
a
you're
million or $500,000,
you're-
and these people can think. But I think if we think about it, not by property owners, including not even Toll Brothers, but if you were building a water district there, they're paying for the development. Where's the best place for the pumping station to be so that all the people in this district can, at the minimum cost across the system, be able to connect? And I don't think it's, I mean, let's just hypothetically say that the pumping station should be, next to Meadowbrook's starting road point. Toll Brothers would still pay the lion's share of the cost of building a pumping station. It just wouldn't be on their property. We might have to negotiate that. But I think we need to think about this not by properties individually, but how a water sewer, if you were designed, let's say no one lived there, it's virgin land, and we're going to put in a septic system and a water system, how would that system be designed? So I do think it's worth doing an engineering study, and maybe Toll Brothers will pay for it, to see what's the best configuration for a septic system that has to pump up into Natick's plant on Route 9, the pre-treatment plant before it goes to MWRA. So I think it's worth understanding the engineering. It's not a simple matter of what's best for Toll Brothers property. It's what's best for the region. So I may differ differently, yeah, Liz, you could correct me, and Sean, I hope you'll correct me too.
Liz, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the concept of trying to site the pump station at the lowest point. But in that case, you are talking about a taking in some form. The North
I can't
Sherborn
hear you
Water.
that well, Liz. Am I the
Liz,
only
can you
one?
speak up or get closer to your mic?
Oh, hang on.
Talking about an eminent domain taking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have land development.
So can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So what you're talking about is doing a taking. The North Sherborn Water Sewer District does not own any property. They are just a legislative district where we are allowed to serve with water and sewer. So that is not a quick process ever. And as Steve has pointed out, we are on a timeline with this project. Additionally, I don't think the district has an interest in owning a pump station at this time. With this arrangement, the pump station stays entirely private, meaning that those alarms go off. It's Toll Brothers and Kennedy Wilson that's getting called. It's not the district that's dealing with the maintenance of the system. Typically, municipalities avoid owning sewage pump stations just because they are prone to getting clogged. And they also have ongoing maintenance and energy consumption. So the way the system is designed is we are at the end of the line and we are entirely uphill to Natick. So we are installing a 2,000 linear foot force main in the right of way to get to Natick. That's a pretty hefty chunk of infrastructure. Considering installing an additional 2,000 linear feet to drain back to us to serve 12 homes is a substantial cost. You have a ton of bedrock in your road. We have gone out, we have done probes. So I think even to get to there would require a high level of blasting. Not to say that, people near us, again, if they wanted to consider tying in, that still is an option. And the way it would work is that our pump stations would need to talk, right? So right now, the system's designed to serve our site. It's going to have a force main. It's going to have a pump station. If somebody else wants to come online, they need a pump station as well because it is a pressurized main. When they do that, they need to demonstrate no harm to the existing pump station. And to get us there, we need to have the pump stations talking via telemetry. There'll be conditions that the new pump station cannot fire when our pump station is firing. And this is because pump stations are designed on two principles. One, how much are you moving? And how high are you moving it? And when you start adding more flow, so more on that how much, you're going to increase our energy demands, increase our cost demand, our operating costs, and then also potentially put our pump at an unideal operating condition. So prone to burning out quicker. So pumps have to talk. That may mean that a level of storage is installed in the upstream pumps. Just in the chance that you want to fire when we're operating. And then they all should be operating at a consistent rate. So as the biggest user, we are setting that rate. We're setting it right out at the get-go. We're still working through those calculations. I don't have that number right now. So that would be what's happening. And just thinking through the engineering again of putting 2,000 linear feet of gravity sewer main from Speen Street down to our pump station sounds exorbitant for 12 homes. So I'm happy to answer engineering questions related to this if we want to get a little bit more out of speculation as well.
Yeah, probably not in this meeting.
Okay.
One of the things that, just to slightly tweak what Liz said, and so Liz's perspective, her job is to design the best system for Toll Brothers. And
That's not correct.
No, that's not right.
Yes. So
Liz,
no.
I listened, you spoke, and now I'm speaking.
Yeah, let Bob finish, and then Liz, you can answer.
So the thing she's saying, oh, well, that's a huge expense for 12 homes. But keep in mind, because I do my 40-unit building, it's not 12 homes we're talking about. It's potentially 52 homes or whatever it is. And I would pay the fair share. In other words, I wouldn't pay 1/12. I'd pay the fair share. Now, that still probably won't get us there. I don't know. All I'm asking, and I think in some ways Jeff said it better than I did, which is that, we need to figure out the best way to design the system, not and including the 12 homes, not the best way to design the system for Toll Brothers to have the lowest expense possible. And I'm not one of these guys that gets up and says, oh, Toll Brothers make so much money they can afford this. I'm not going there. I've been on the other side of that too many times. But I do think that I have some money with my building in my budget that can go with, and nobody's saying that Al or anyone else should get in for free. But it should be, in my mind, based on the legislation and what they were all sold, it should be a reasonable price, right? It should be a price that's sensible. It's not, the legislation is not telling you that you have access, but you have to pay $500,000. And I understand Liz corrected me on that. It's not going to cost Al $500,000, but we need to know what it does cost. I'm asking for a little bit of work by the town to find out what our options are. I threw out this idea of this 2,000 linear feet of gravity fed back down. I'm not an engineer. I have no idea, but engineers do have ideas about how to solve these problems. And I think we need to have an engineer that doesn't work for Toll Brothers. Advise us on the best way to approach this. And that's what I'm here tonight asking for. I think that's what Jeff was saying.
Liz, you wanted to respond?
Liz, you're muted.
You're muted.
I just wanted to point out, as a licensed engineer in the state of Massachusetts, I am held to a professional code of conduct, and I can't just come up and spout incorrect information in a public forum at all. Yes, I do work for Toll Brothers and Kennedy Wilson in this aspect, but have also been working very collaboratively with the district trying to bring this to fruition.
Thank you.
And nothing I said was meant to impugn Liz and warn the walls.
Sorry, in the blue shirt, you had your hand up earlier. Did you want to say something?
No, Liz answered. My name is Charles Bowerman, 15 Meadowbrook Road. Liz answered some technical questions, but
Okay.
I think one thing to the whole point is if you lose electricity and you have a pressure fed system and you have a tank that's technically in a location where you're not gravity feeding, what happens then? Now, I'm sure there's generators, I'm sure there's that sort of thing. However, we have experienced extended power outages. And so when you have personal systems tied into a pressurized system, you can't pump into it. And then you have a highly pressurized system owned by, that's servicing a larger space. I think that is a consideration. Those maybe you are considering, but it is something that could impact not just homes, but the sanitary nature of that entire living area.
Yeah. No, I mean, ultimately, I think there's probably more common ground here than we might be acknowledging. I mean, part of the issue is that, again, the legislation, all it promises is access. It does not promise access for a reasonable price. The price effectively is going to be dictated by the engineering. I did not have a full understanding of what the engineering of a sewer system in this location would be, right? That is unfortunate that was a dearth of information. But ultimately, I don't know that we can necessarily overcome that, right? The engineering is going to be what the engineering is.
don't know yet.
Right. And I recognize that you're asking to do an engineering study. And I think what I am saying is that essentially anytime somebody in the district wants to connect to water or sewer, it is ultimately the onus is on the people who want to connect to basically figure out how is it going to happen and to pay for it. And, again, right now is the time to do it, right? And doing it in collaboration with Toll Brothers, who is still in the midst of designing the system many months away, is the way to do it, right? If you would like to hire an independent engineer to look at the problem and come up with an alternate solution and engage with Toll Brothers, engage with Liz, Ty and Bond, to work on the problem, you are more than welcome to, right? It's not something that the town has really jurisdiction over, nor does the district, right? Because the way that the infrastructure is being built is that it is being built by private developers. We intentionally did it this way because we didn't want the town or the district to effectively be, proposing and managing a major public infrastructure project. We didn't want to do that.
Your IMA with Natick says that's what you have to do.
Yeah, it says that ultimately the infrastructure will get turned over to the district.
And you have to manage it, inspect it, maintain it, all of those.
After it's all built.
Built, of course.
Right. And we don't dictate what is designed and built. It gets built to serve the people who want to be served by it.
I disagree. That's not what the legislation says.
Pat,
Does final approval of system run through the town, the normal permitting process, or run through the North Sherborn Water Sewer District?
it'll be the district.
Okay, so theoretically, we're barking up the tree.
Well, I tried to get a meeting with them, but they refused to put it on the agenda. All they would put on was public questions. To me, that was a lie to put public questions on the agenda, when in fact I said specifically that I wanted to talk about this issue and I was refused having it on the agenda.
I can answer.
You're right. Absolutely right.
Go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, I can answer that. I didn't make the agenda that night, but
the chair.
But the chair did, but you wanted to be on the agenda. You wanted a half hour at least on the agenda.
That's correct. I did.
And we did not have that much time on the agenda. we were working through the bylaws of the water district.
I mean, I can't think of
These
another.
are things we have
issue
to do
is
that night.
Critical than this issue.
So will there be a separate permitting process through the district?
Pardon me?
A separate permitting process Toll Brothers has to go through the district?
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah.
Or anyone else.
Just out of curiosity, where are we with the IMAs and the permitting and all that? Where is that currently?
The IMA with Natick is fully signed and executed, and with Framingham, it's still work in progress.
The IMA with Natick only says how much sewage we have the right to discharge into the Natick system in terms of gallons per day. And what fee we have to pay to do that, to Natick.
And we are sure we know what Toll Brothers is calculating for what they need.
Yeah, that's all of those calculations were done in order to create the IMA.
Sized.
Yeah.
See, the weird thing is we argued about all of those things based on the assumption we all had that we were all going to have access to it. And it turns out that, only Toll Brothers knew that this was a problem. None of us knew this was a problem. I didn't know, you didn't know. And we've gotten, and back to my being here. I'm here not to fight with you guys tonight. I want to collaborate. We got a problem. And if you just put your heads in the sand and say, no, we don't have a problem, that's going to be bad. So I'm here tonight not to tell you we have to do this or we have to do that. I'm here to say we've got a problem and I am willing to be collaborative and look at the possibilities that are unearthed and sit with you all and talk about it as one of 12 residents on Coolidge Street that were promised this. And forget about the building. Let's just talk about access for a single family home, 12 of them. And I'm here tonight. No, I didn't come to fight. I came to say we got a problem and let's work together to fix it. Because otherwise we end up wasting a lot more time and money than we should. And
Oh, yeah, Dan.
Yeah, thanks. So a couple of comments. Since I was chair of advisory when that report was written, just a couple comments about that. I should say first though, thanks for coming and doing this. It's valuable and important to have this conversation. I appreciate both of you, everybody being here. You correctly highlighted that I'm not a civil engineer. There wasn't anybody on advisory who was a civil engineer. And I think our understanding at the time was very similar to what you said, that, water and sewer were similar. And if the pipe's there, you can hook in. I think as we've learned, given the topography and the technology of force mains, that just isn't the way sewer works. Water does, that's great. Sewer just doesn't. And we've learned that and have to, whatever was said in that report, that was said with what people understood at the time. Turns out that wasn't the correct understanding. At the same time, you referenced the legislation, you read part of the sentence about how any other lot existing as of October 17, 2023 shall be connected to the district's waterworks and wastewater management, which then goes on to say, though, upon request of the owner, provided, however, that the district shall have installed appropriate pipes in a way abutting such owner's land, and such owner pays district in advance all costs of connecting. So I don't think the legislation is making a promise that there is a connection to be had at some minimal cost. That's just not, I'm not a lawyer either. Paul's the lawyer here.
None of us.
Yeah, Paul's the lawyer.
We're not going to resolve any litigation.
Right. But so
hopefully we'll never have to
yes,
resolve any litigation.
Indeed. But so I think it's not my read of the legislation. I think that was very intentional because I won't read the quotes, but there were a lot of promises made that, this project, this enterprise was not going to be a burden on the taxpayers. And there were a lot of places in FAQs or places in the advisory report that made that clear. All of that having been said, my starting point tonight was actually pretty similar to Jeff's, thinking that, you've raised some interesting questions and, I'd be interested in knowing the answers to those. Liz, I think, threw a little bit of shade on that because it sounds like it's a lot more complicated and potentially more expensive. I'd be interested in knowing, is there some not so expensive, not so complicated way of making this work? I completely get, as Liz said, why the town probably does not want to own a pumping station. Obviously that would be a point for discussion, but, I take the caution on that. So, I'd be interested in knowing, is there some relatively straightforward, not expensive way that would facilitate more connections? But if that becomes very expensive, then I think it's a problem because there isn't any entity that's going to be able to pay for a very expensive set of changes. So just, to put out where I
You
am.
might be able to get new legislation passed that is workable for this type of project, if
I
necessary.
don't think it's a matter of new legislation. I think it'd be a matter of how expensive it is to do the engineering and,
Well, no. What I'm saying is that if the legislation says what I think it says, and I obviously know other people can have different opinions about that, then you need new legislation because the facts on the ground don't work with the legislation, and that's all doable. We got a democracy and we can work through it, but
I think it's a matter of engineering and cost rather than the words and the laws.
that's why I'm here tonight. Let's do it. Let's.
Yeah, and I think Liz's comments suggested that, it may be expensive and complicated. We don't know, but went in that direction.
There have been suggestions out there that the cost of particular pumps, and I've forgotten the name of them, which are small residential type of pumps, might work going into this system. And it might, I'm not here to say you owe us, plug it in for $10, but you owe us that it's less than 100,000. I mean, there's somewhere in between.
It depends on the engineering.
Right? And if
depends on the engineering.
No, but that's what
maybe it's possible, maybe it's not.
But so if we find out that you can use these small plug-in residential pumps and it's going to cost Al $25,000 to plug in, then I think we don't have a problem anymore.
So that would be a great reason to connect with Toll Brothers and find out if that's possible.
Well, you have to.
I whistle at being told that Toll Brothers has to tell me
They're
how to
building
use
it.
my public utility.
They're building it.
They're building it. It's not a public utility yet.
It will be.
Jeff.
I still think we need, and Dan makes some good points. I think we need to think about this differently a little bit, though. Liz made some strong points too, but now I'm thinking, I still think we need to do some engineering. Whether Toll Brothers, who pays for it, I don't know, but I think it's worth doing some engineering. And another possibility I thought of is, what if we put a very small pump station near the 12 homeowners that pumps it? It's stupid, but pumps it up to Toll Brothers property, and then they have the massive pump that pumps it into Natick. I don't know if that's a solution, but I'm going to make a motion now, and I don't know if it'll be seconded or not. I'd like to make a motion that the town consider an engineering contract to look at the pumping issues related to septic systems, effluent, so that we can find a way that the property owners along the route have a economically feasible way to connect. I don't think it's an expensive study, and so I'd like to make that motion and see if anyone would second it.
I'll second it.
All right, before we vote, Liz has her hand up.
Yeah, I was just gonna suggest a compromise because it seems like we're kind of going around a bit. I think Toll Brothers and Kennedy Wilson has been very clear with the public that we are on a time frame, that we need to have our entitlements completed by the end of this year due to the agreements that they have with the existing property owners. So we need to get, and we have a boatload of permitting to get through. You guys have seen the diagrams where we're going through MEPA, we're going to the Water Resource Commission, we're going to go to the MWRA. We have these IMAs to get through. We have a bunch of legislation and articles of organization we're working on. I think Bob has generously volunteered to fund this study. I think Bob can study whatever he wants, as long as we are not held up.
No, that's not an acceptable compromise. I would ask that the board vote on the motion.
That's a suggestion. What if they just provided a typical detail tied into it?
Sorry, say that again. If what?
They just provided a typical detail.
What does that mean?
So like, if you are a homeowner, this is what you need to provide to tie into our system. this spec of pump, this spec of pipe, whatever. But they just put a detail in the drawings to say, this is what you will need.
Well, it has to work with the whole system.
I understand.
No, that's why they would provide it.
I mean,
I know it's nothing to do with
Yeah. yeah, it's ultimately, I guess I feel like I keep on saying the same thing 3 or 4 different ways, which is just that you guys, you should reach out to Toll Brothers and let them know that you are potentially interested in tying into the system that they're building.
I don't pay taxes to Toll Brothers.
And
You know, initially though, we were told that we would just have to tie in. So that would be our engineering into tying in. Now, I don't understand all that. Just that maybe I misunderstand, but it's me connecting to a sewer pipe,
yeah,
not me dealing with Toll Brothers. I've never heard that.
well, let me put a different spin on that. So Toll Brothers is going to build what they need for their projects, right? The pipe will be there, and there is the potential that you could simply tie into it, but it would be entirely on your dime to figure out how would you tie into that. And you would have to do the engineering, and you would have to figure out what the cost would be, and it would have to ensure that it wouldn't harm the existing system. Very likely that is going to cost you a lot more money to do it after the fact than to try to get into the design from the ground floor, because the entire system will be designed to incorporate your needs, right? As opposed to you trying to tie into it after the fact.
So how is that different from a town that already has sewer all over the town? And you build a house on an empty lot and tie in? Is it similar?
So, I mean, I may have to defer to Jeremy on that, but I think that if you have a town that has a gigantic sewer system, essentially the town probably built that themselves on a massive multi-million-dollar project that was being paid for by the taxpayers. And it was probably designed from the get-go to be a public infrastructure system, right? And furthermore, there are plenty of situations where, you know, whatever infrastructure is there, despite being in a district, might not be appropriate for a particular house to tie into. And then that house may end up having to have just their own on-site septic system. You know, the house that I grew up in, you know, I had well and septic, even though there was municipal services, because where my house was, just access to that wasn't really feasible, right? And so each situation is going to be a little bit different, right? And so the engineering is going to dictate what is financially feasible.
But it sounds like it would probably be, I would think it would be cheaper for me to be able to connect to the sewer line than to deal with going through toll roads.
Well, it depends. Well, but that is predicated on the sewer line that's running past you being something already that is appropriate for you to tie into. If that makes sense.
And there's a debate about it. Stephen, I have to say again, because we are missing each other on a fundamental issue. You are saying that we have to live with what Toll Brothers builds. That is fundamentally incorrect. We, the town of Sherborn, are in a negotiation with Toll Brothers. Now, by the way, we should have had a memorandum of understanding a long time ago, which we don't have, or at least I'm told we don't have one. We are negotiating what's acceptable to us and not. It's not, I'm not saying Toll Brothers doesn't have a lot of leverage. They do. But fundamentally, I disagree with you. I am a taxpayer here, and I'm talking to my government who is negotiating with Toll Brothers. Don't tell me you can't negotiate with Toll Brothers. You might get your butt kicked in the negotiation, but that's what you're doing. You're negotiating with Toll Brothers, and I'm here to tell you what I want. And I'm telling you it's wrong to allow Toll Brothers to just dictate this. And I think we can get to an answer, but there's a fundamental disagreement. You keep telling me to call Toll Brothers. That's just wrong. I have no relationship with Toll Brothers. I have a relationship with my government, who passed a law and told me and Al and all the rest of us certain things. That's why I'm here. I'm not, I talk to them, yes, but I don't negotiate with them. I negotiate with my town because the town is going to bill me and sell me the water and sewer, not Toll Brothers. There's this fundamental disconnect that Toll Brothers is going to own this thing and the North Sherborn Water District is just some like sham thing. Okay, it's not. We're going to own it and we're going to run it and we're going to build people like us. And that's the way it's going to work. We got to get out of this mindset that Toll Brothers is running the show here.
I'd be interested if Liz could offer any insight into if there were a single family home along Coolidge that did want to hook in, in very broad general terms, what would be involved in that?
Sure. So it's going to be similar for anyone. So this is a pressure system. We're going uphill all the way to Natick. So there's no dip in the line, there's no break. We were hoping when we got the topography that we'd be able to pump, hit a manhole, and go gravity down into Natick. But even when we get into Natick, the infrastructure's shallow. So we're pumping the whole way. So
Right.
anybody who enters this system has to be pressurized. And again, all the pumps are going to need to be able to talk. So telemetry would need to be added, and you're going to have to pump at the same rate that we're pumping at. So it will be
Oddly.
a heavy load. I mean, a high head or high rate for a single family home to pump at, like, I think we'll be somewhere around 150 gallons per minute. Usually, a single family home is producing around 440 gallons per day. So you're not going to be cycling too much, I'd say. So talking to the pump system, having backup storage. To answer, I couldn't see, they were off my screen, that gentleman's question earlier, what happens during a power outages. Most pump stations are designed with 24-hour storage or have a backup generator. In our case, we'll have a generator. I would think most single-family homes would evaluate if they have one or if they don't. And then they could tie in. So it would be a premium pump station, right? So a septic system, probably a little more in Sherborn, knowing that you guys have a pretty hefty groundwater offset, can run somebody anywhere between, like, on the low end, if you're lucky with no fill, like 30 grand. And then if you're not lucky, you're going way up to 80, 100K to install one. So I would think you're in the order of magnitude closer to that 100K mark. Depends on how far you are from the line. Depends on if you end up hitting any rock. There's a ton of rock in Sherburne as well. And then again, how it fleshes out with that pump station design. So not the 500,000 we were talking about, but it will be a premium pump station for someone to connect.
And if someone wanted to do that, uh, you'd be open to, or the appropriate folks would be open to hearing from them and having that conversation?
So there's, yes, we could talk to them now. The benefit, if you're kind of further down the line, is that when we're there opening the road, we're in front of you, right? So we're doing the road trenching already and can plan accordingly. You're still, again, responsible for anything getting to the system. Closer down to us, I think the benefit's still the same. So it's just a little bit more complex. And then I'll leave it at that. There isn't a typical detail. I think that idea was floated. There's going to be, just again, depending on where you are, how far you are from it, what your flow rates are, if you're going with that emergency storage, or if you have a generator, these things are going to be customized per each homeowner.
Dan, did you have?
Liz, I was just going to say again, if you could just reiterate maybe what you had said before about the prospects for sort of an alternative arrangement of where the pump station is and whether that would be a solution that would provide a lower cost alternative for homeowners to tap in.
So overall, if we were to try to have a centralized pump station, we're adding substantial costs to the system, to the infrastructure.
And does substantial come with any estimate of a number, or just it would
No,
just
it
too hard to
doesn't.
tell?
Just again,
Yeah,
because you're
it's too
asking
hard
for,
depending on ledge and all the rest. Sure.
yeah,
Okay.
bedrock
Yeah.
blasting in the roadway is a premium cost and can more than double
Yeah.
your construction
Understood.
costs quickly.
Understood.
And Jeremy's got his hand up, so.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, Liz, when you mentioned that, this premium pump station, conceivably multiple properties could share one pump station. So
I think that would be ideal. Yeah.
there could be some sharing of that cost between neighbors.
Yeah. Like for instance, like Meadowbrook, if they got together and petitioned to get service, it may make sense to have a community pump station that goes back to the force main rather than each individual homeowner having one.
But I mean, that's the idea of a public utility. That's,
I can give an example in Medfield when I was on the Board of Water and Sewerage, where the most feasible way to sewer a neighborhood was to have all the homes have separate pump stations into a small diameter force main with a lower pressure than this system. But that was the most feasible.
but it seems like the problem, as I understand it, I'm not an engineer, but it seems like the problem is that we're starting from Toll Brothers with a pressurized pipe. And therefore, all the rest of us have to connect into a pressurized pipe. That's the engineering challenge. That's the expense challenge.
That's the constraint.
Right. And so I was looking for opportunities to find another way to get the waste to a single place with Toll Brothers. And then we all pump together. That's how I thought this would naturally be designed. But
sounds like that would be challenging.
Jeff, and then David Buckley.
Yeah, I think Paul had his hand up. So I feel that the town should do an engineering study to see what the options are for all other residents on the road. I don't think it's realistic to them to pay even $100,000 to tie into it. They're not, individual homes not going to do that. And I think we should better understand how we can represent those residents who might want to tie in the future. And I don't think allowing Toll Brothers to do that is appropriate. They shouldn't have to pay for that study, but I think we're doing a disservice to these people along the route if we don't understand the details. So with that said, I made a motion and it's been seconded. So when you're ready, I would request a vote on my motion, please.
I think we're still in the discussion.
I understand. I'm just telling you
Paul,
where I am.
did you have something?
so while the discussion is going on, I've read the act to see what it says, and it does provide that the costs of connections from these homes are to be borne by the homeowners. It's not to be borne by the district. And there's nothing in here that talks about that the costs have to be reasonable. The amount of the costs aren't addressed at all in the legislation. So that leaves open the question of the motion that Jeff made to have somebody look at it to see if it can be done cheaper for all the reasons that Jeff has said. If there's a way to make it cheaper, it may be not what Toll Brothers is planning to do today, but if there's something that would make it cheaper, then maybe we should negotiate with Toll Brothers and bring the cost down for everybody. Not that we're required to do that. But as Jeff has said, I'm just going to echo what he said, that it's in the public interest to allow for connections, and it's in the public interest to protect all our residents. So what is there to lose by having an engineer take a look at it? And if the motion includes the assumption, which I think it does, that it's not to delay Toll Brothers at all, it's just to have an engineer take a look at it and see if there is something we can do to help people. But there's no downside.
David Buckley, and can you introduce yourself?
Yes, David Buckley with Toll Brothers. Thank you this evening. Really quick, and I appreciate the board's time, and from our end, I don't believe we feel this is a toll dictating how things are. I think, as we've discussed this evening, each private owner and toll ultimately representing private property in the district is at its private efforts doing its private study and installing at its expense all the infrastructure to connect, which would be no different than what other residents within the district would have to do. The force main is sort of just nature of engineering, which Liz has explained. I think the other residents in the district are going to receive a massive benefit for the installation of that force main. Toll just so happens to be the first, would just so happen to be the first people in the district doing work. And everyone else that comes after would receive a very massive benefit. That force main installation is very expensive. And that is a gigantic financial benefit that everyone else along the line would receive. They would have the ability to connect with additional infrastructure, as we discussed, with other pumps, privately owned, which they would have to do much in the same way Toll is doing, and connect much in the same way. Everyone is operating, from our perspective, in the same playing field, in line with the legislation and how everything was set up. We just happen to be first, and we're spending a lot of money to be first at our expense, and everyone else after us would receive a massive benefit, very massive benefit. If Bob, wanted to build his 40 homes and install that force main before us, we would not be unhappy. We would certainly be very delighted if that happened. I understand that's not, and I'm joking around. So there is a huge benefit happening to the public by us going first. And that force main will be able to handle other users coming into it with the proper engineering coordination. We do believe that there could be benefit if any unit owner wants to privately contract with an engineer and do it at the same time. There could be some real benefits if they do it at the same time. Cost efficiencies when roadways are open. Happy to have conversations with anyone privately within the district. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Bob,
I just have a quick question for Dave, and that is, so Dave,
can you direct your questions to me?
I'd be happy to. Didn't realize we were being informal. I'd like for Dave to tell us that, or rather, I'd like to say to Dave, or to you, and you can say to Dave, that what you just said is that we can plug in at a cost. And all we're saying is, let's talk about what that cost is before we go build it. Because I think it's fair for the 12 of us on Coolidge to have some idea what it's going to cost. If it's going to cost 25 grand, 50 grand, fine. That's great. But if it's going to cost 350, that's not okay in my mind. Paul and I can disagree on what the legislation says, and neither of us get to decide. And ultimately, in some ways, I think what Paul and Jeff were both saying is forget about the legislation and what's legally required. Let's talk about kind of politically or morally what should we do? What's the right thing for the town to do vis-a-vis the 12 people after those conversations we had? But my question is, Dave is telling us that it's easy to plug into this thing. Great. If that's true and it's $25,000, end of discussion.
He didn't say it would be easy to plug into.
Okay, whatever he said you can plug in. I'm just asking the further question. Can the town tell the 12 of us just roughly what that looks like? When I start hearing telemetry and all kinds of things, that doesn't sound like a homeowner system. But if I'm wrong, great. And that's all I'm here tonight. I'm not here to pick a fight. I'm here to ask for more information.
And I guess what I'm saying is that nobody is stopping you from getting more information.
Right.
Well, you have a motion on the floor.
But I mean, it seems like you could vote.
You don't
Tomorrow.
need us
You
to
could vote
do it.
tomorrow, say to Toll Brothers, hey, you're going to be doing this work.
Because
Potentially interested in doing something. Can we talk about that? Would be?
But regardless of whether you individually or as a group approach Toll Brothers to say, hey, we would be interested in finding out how we could get integrated into it, right? And then they design it and they say, all right, well, this is what it would cost. Or
They're not going to design that for me, Steve.
Hmm?
They're not going to design that.
But let me finish. So regardless of whether they do that or whether you get an independent engineer to look at the problem and figure out, well, how is this going to work? That independent engineer is still going to have to go talk to Toll Brothers and find out, all right, well, what is the system that you're building and what are your needs? And then try to figure out, all right, well, now how can we incorporate all of these other users into the system, right? And so, one, I recognize that you are more comfortable having an independent engineer. I do want to defend Liz a little bit that you are effectively questioning her integrity when you say that.
I have said
No, but you have, but that's what you were saying, right?
I'm saying that we shouldn't, as a town, have the person we're negotiating with answer engineering questions.
Right, and that's fine. And that's fine. That's fine. So you want an independent engineer to look at the issue.
Yes.
You are welcome to hire an independent engineer and get the 12 people or one person or 3 people that want to be involved to look at the issue. And you can hire them and you can have them discuss with Toll Brothers and figure it out. And then they can come up with a price.
I don't have even anything on paper to give to an engineer to look at, to think about those things. I don't have access to that. You do. You can ask Toll Brothers. Why do you keep telling me to talk to Toll Brothers?
There's a comment from.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
First of all, I appreciate Paul and Jeff. I think the main point here is that when this thing was presented and voted on, we were sold something different than this premium pump station that Liz just told us about. And I think that we're just asking for the town to support us and understand if there's a better solution.
I mean, the challenge is that, the town was also told this isn't going to cost anything. And so if the study goes in the direction of I'm going to make up a number, some millions of dollars to do this,
Sure.
The town's not going to do it, right? Because, the promise was made that wasn't going to happen. And so, we're in this difficult situation where, if the cost is modest, then, individual homeowners would, presumably comfortably cover it if they wanted to do that. If the cost isn't modest, which from what Liz said, sounds like it's the sort of solution that Bob was talking about of moving the pump station, sounds like that's going to be very expensive. And then we're just going to get into this problem of, there was, people didn't understand in 2023 that, this isn't a gravity sewage system. And, that was an unfortunate misunderstanding or lack of understanding. But given where we are now, we're running against the challenge of can't really ask the town to put up a large sum of money to fix the problem. And so we're sort of stuck in this difficult place.
But I see a cheap way to do it from what they said. So the 12 homeowners, instead of 12 people, each building a system, somebody bring the 12 homeowners together and have one system
And
for 12
and
homes.
and remember too that I don't know what the situation is, but I could easily imagine some of those homeowners, if it was $25,000, you know, my septic system's fine. I'm not interested in $25,000. I can imagine that for some of them. Obviously, I haven't spoken to people. You know, those of you who live in that neighborhood might have a better idea about that.
But whether it's 12 or 10 or 8, it's going to reduce the cost. The cost, instead of each person spending, let's say, $100,000 to join, it's going to be a much less number. And that's just a function of somebody organizing the 12th, picking up the phone. So it's not like there was anything in Jeff's motion that said we're going to spend $1 million. There's nothing in there about our spending anything like that. It was just a question of looking at to see if there's an idea like that that would effectively reduce costs for the public.
Hang on. We have one hand raised, Steph Harrison, and then I'll come back to you, Al.
Hi, thanks. Am I understanding correctly that, and I'm sorry, I haven't been involved in a lot of these conversations, but am I understanding correctly that the pump at the Toll Brothers would be owned by the development and the district would own the force main that goes to Natick?
That
in the long term?
In the long term, yes, but
Okay.
that handover wouldn't happen until there was another user on that force main other than Toll Brothers.
That would be a violation.
Understood. So I think my question is, I just wanted to make a comment about the idea of the town doing an engineering study. I think so. I'm a civil engineer. I don't do collection systems, but I know a little bit about hydraulics. It sounds like the intention of doing the engineering study is to see if there's a way to work gravity into the system, such that, you know, the idea that I heard suggested in the beginning was gravity back to Toll Brothers and then pump to a force main over to Natick. And I think this really boils down to pump ownership. At the end of the day, all of the sewage has to be pumped. It has to go uphill, right? From any home in the district, it has to go uphill. And the biggest pump right now is planned to be at the Toll Brothers, owned by that development. The remaining homes would still have to pump. They can either pump themselves to the line, right, to the pressurized line, with what Liz called a premium pump station, or they can pool together jointly to pump, either through some sort of a homeowners association and some community owned, privately owned pump, just like what would be at the Toll Brothers, but just for the 12 or fewer parcels, right? But the idea of draining by gravity back to the Toll Brothers to a central pump station, that changes the picture because that's no longer a pump owned by the Toll Brothers, right? Or owned by the development. That becomes the community pump. So I guess I think that the engineering study would show that it's feasible to drain by gravity technically back to the Toll Brothers and have a centralized pump station. But if everybody's sewage is going to the Toll Brothers, right, then that's no longer a privately owned pump. It becomes a district owned pump. So I just, to me, like the engineering feasibility of doing something, yes, there is a cost, but there's a bigger question of who's going to own the pumps.
Well, the statute's set up so that we don't own, the town does not, the district doesn't own the pumps. It's not what the IMA clause says with Natick. I don't have that. I'm just looking at the statute.
I read the IMA this afternoon. It says that the district has to own the pumps, the pipes, it says that the district has to own it all. That's what the IMA says. And the reason for that is they don't want to have to be relying on Toll Brothers if something goes wrong. They want to rely on the North Sherborn Water District. That's what the IMA says.
Just looking at the statute.
Mary.
All right. I wonder if I can modify your motion. Fundamental, I think that, yeah, Bob and your neighbors, whoever, you should get an engineering study done. independently. The town can't pay for it, but you're willing to, so that's good.
Your colleagues have just
the-
made a motion.
Let me finish. The engineering study should describe to your engineer, whoever you hire, that you need to show that the system can work initially just for the two large developments with a force main pump, and that properties can be added when they're ready to be added, whenever they're ready to be added. And just to be clear, and it may be, maybe it's better to do a group situation, but I think they should understand that the whole system is not going to be pumping from the get-go. It's going to be added to incrementally. So the system has to be designed to accommodate that. But yeah, I mean, if it can be done expeditiously, and you're willing to fund it. I mean, I was going to suggest that anyway. I think it's a good idea for you to show us how it could be engineered. And then the cost, we'll figure out what that is once you find a system that'll work. Does that make sense?
Not to me, it doesn't, no. I made a motion and I don't accept your amendment at all.
Okay.
So I believe the town should pay for it because we're representing all the residents in the district to collectively see what's the best way that they can possibly connect to the system. So I don't believe Toll Brothers should pay for that. I think the town should pay for it, and I didn't like your amendment. I understand your intent, but I don't think that's appropriate. I think the town should assess these are residents of the town who pay tax. We should assess what's the best technical way if they want to connect their septic systems to the system. What's the best technical way to do it? That's my motion, and it's been seconded.
Okay.
All right. The motion is on the table. All in favor? All opposed?
Could support Marion's, but for Marion's,
That's what it
for
is.
Marion's version. Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to make, is your alternative a motion that should be made separately or?
Marion's gonna make a motion to spend my money?
Yeah, well, maybe.
Come on. I gave you guys enough money.
Oh, okay, we're making a motion to support your suggestion that you will pay for it.
The government's making a motion to spend my money. Come on, guys. Why can't you be the government?
Okay.
Act like the government.
We don't have to make a motion, then you can go ahead and do it.
You are welcome to do the study.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody is stopping you.
Shirk your responsibilities to lead in this community, and it's so frustrating. I'm sorry for getting upset, but I thought I could come here tonight and ask for something that was pretty small. Talking about a couple of $1,000.
Yeah, well,
but and hang on, sorry, let me finish. So the reason that I'm saying I don't want to do it that way is not the $2,000. It's that you're not taking responsibility. I'll write the check for the $2,000, but I want you to be responsible for developing the process. I want the government to do its job. I'm not the government. It's not the $2,000 that's bothering me. It's the fact that you're just, as I said to someone today, the train is leaving the station, right? Bob, go do what you want. The train's leaving the station. Well, okay. I find that frustrating. I find repeatedly that this board will not lead this town. We need leadership on this issue of public water and sewer. It's horrible not to have public water and sewer. And I would ask, where are all the anti-development people who tell us that sewer is so dangerous to us? The septic system is so dangerous. Where are they in supporting public sewer in town? I hear crickets from them. And I find that really frustrating. And I find it frustrating because I think this is a multi-decade mistake you're making. To just we'll just build a private sewer system. Don't worry about public infrastructure, Bob. It's not a big deal. Well, when you guys keep running up against your tax problems, which you clearly have, do you know why that is? Because you make decisions like this. How can you say that not spending $1 million or $2 million isn't wildly worth it? I sat in front of the planning board 15 years ago and I said, get a 30-year bond. The taxes will cover the cost of the infrastructure on the new things that are built. It'll cover it in a few years. And rates were at 2.5% at the time. Now, unfortunately,
Bob, thank
rates
you.
aren't.
We're done. Thank you. All right, we're moving on.
Sorry for getting hot, but I just gotta say, this is so disappointing. It really is.
All right, we're moving on.
Are you ending this conversation?
I am ending this conversation. All right, next up, we have the consent agenda.
That's your job, Paul. Consent agenda. Wake up over here.
Sorry. Thank you.
This motion.
To approve the consent agenda.
Second,
All right, moved and seconded, all in favor? All right. All right, select board reports.
I just wanted to say, oh, go ahead.
no, I can't think of anything.
I was just gonna say a quick thank you to Jeremy on the healthcare PEC stuff. It was great that we got that done and appreciate the work that you and a whole lot of other people did to make that. Hey,
Yeah, come on in.
yeah, you're good.
Leave the door open.
Yeah, leave the door open. We're still in open session. All right, TA updates.
Yeah, just one, some good news. We heard that the water system that was recently constructed for Woodhaven Elder Housing has won an outstanding performance award from Mass DEP for the small community system category of 2026. It kind of recognizes the benefit that system is providing to those residents. I guess it was one of the highest scoring projects in the category, and we will be receiving an award on May 5th at an award ceremony. So wanted to announce that great news.
Nice.
I have not something else to announce, but it's under embargo. So your next meeting.
Okay.
That's good, technically, but also because it's elderly and affordable housing, in addition to the technical merit.
Is there a check with the award?
We claim the award. We put up in Woodhaven or somewhere, but. And
That's pretty cool, though.
this next meeting, there's another thing that we can announce, but that's under embargo. So not related to.
All right. So with that, I will move that we re-enter executive session for executive session item number 4. We will not be returning to open session, so this will mark the close of the open session.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. I guess a roll call vote. Marion?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
And I'm also aye.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
excuse myself.
Yeah.
2 minutes.
Yeah,
Sure.
we're not timing you. This doesn't start till 8:30.
All right. Stop recording.